Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Bold Predictions for LSU going into 2025. This is one of those programs that it's really fun for me to do these bold predictions because I've been vocal all spring that I believe in this roster. I believe in the guys that they brought back from the 2024 season, but more importantly, I believe in a lot of the names that they brought in through the transfer portal as well. And we're sitting here in early May. It's the opportunity for myself to call my shot on some of these football players going into 2025. Now, before we get into it, to the LSU fans, I got some hot takes that I'm certainly going to let fly off my chest. I am sure that y'all got some hot takes as well. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it now. We got to start this episode talking about probably my favorite addition that LSU made in the portal. That is Barian Brown, the wide receiver one for LSU, going for over 1,000 yards receiving. Now, look, there are a couple of different wide receiver one potentials on this roster. And if you wanted to argue Nick Anderson was going to be that guy, I probably wouldn't push back. If you wanted to argue Aaron Anderson would be that guy, you wouldn't see any argument for me. You could even say Chris Hilton Jr. could be that wide receiver one going for over 1,000 yards. The reason I'm going with Barian Brown, a couple of different reasons. Number one, this is an exceptional fit for this kid. You look at Joe Sloan and what he wants to do on offense. Like, it's about getting our playmakers with the football in space and letting them go make plays. Barian Brown's one of the more electric football players in the country with the football in his hands. And you could say that about Aaron Anderson too. I mean, I look at Barian Brown and Aaron Anderson. Those are going to be two guys that LSU schemes up and says, hey, how can we figure out different ways to get the football to both of these guys in spacing and let them go make plays? Now, the reason I'm going with Barian Brown here is I think the verticality of this game is certainly there too. He's a multi-dimensional dude. Like, he's very electric with the football in his hands, but he's also a 10-5 guy in the 100-meter dash. He can run right by guys working vertically down the field as well. A lot of different ways that this LSU pass catching room can attack an opposing defense. But I think Barian Brown, one, is my favorite wide receiver in this room. Phenomenal fit in terms of what Joe Sloan wants to do. And my last pitch on Barian Brown, I know I'm kind of getting on a soapbox and selling him pretty hard, you might say. Barian Brown would have been a way more productive if he had better quarterback play at Kentucky. And this has been a guy that when he was a freshman at Kentucky a couple of years ago, you're looking at him and saying that this kid's going to be an All-American, All-SEC caliber player. Now, the reason he's not talked about enough in the national media is Kentucky on offense has been a disaster the last couple of years and hasn't really had the quarterback play for a guy like Barian Brown to go for over 1,000 yards. Well, I think he has that with Garrett Nussmeier in 2025. Give me Barian Brown. And really, the only way this prediction doesn't come true, in my opinion, is if there's just too many mouths to feed and you got four guys go for over 800 yards. But I think Barian Brown's the best wide receiver in this room, and I think he's going to have an absolute year for LSU in 2025. Number two, give me Kanan Durham going for 1,200 all-purpose yards in the 2025 year. Now, one of the things I think LSU wants to do a little bit more is run the football and lean on the run game more than they were able to in 2024. If there was one thing that I think probably frustrated a lot of LSU fans was not only the lack of ability to run the football, because I thought at times the ability to run the football was there. Didn't really seem like Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly wanted to stick to the run game. Maybe that was because they kind of had to lean on a true freshman at running back that they didn't want to lean on a ton. I'm not really sure what the reasoning was. But I think going into 2025, you probably want to get back to the run game, at least just a little. And look, with all the wide receivers and what Garrett Nussmeier can do throwing the football, I don't think this is a run-first offense, you might say. But you look at Garrett Nussmeier and say, hey, what's the best way to maximize him as a quarterback? Give him a run game to work off of. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier last year, 10 touchdowns to 1 interception, working off play action. Like, the only way play action is effective if you run the football consistently and well. If you can give Garrett Nussmeier a run game, let him work off play action a little bit better, I think that's better for Garrett Nussmeier as a quarterback. And I think the second part of this is look, you don't have two NFL tackles this year. Now, I think the offensive line is going to be pretty good, and we're going to get to a bold prediction on the offensive line in a second. You probably don't want to lean on throwing the football 50 times a game like you could in 2024 because you knew you had the offensive line to hold up in pass protection. Like one of the best ways to slow a pass rush down is run the football, stick kind of ahead of the chains, if you will. I think LSU is probably going to do that a little bit too, just to take a little bit pressure off a brand new offensive line that probably going to be looking to find their footing early on in the college football season. Now, the reason I'm going all-purpose yards is Kanan Durham going into year two. Number one, I think he's a phenomenal running back. Like, loved him coming out of high school. Loved that he put a little bit more weight on the frame. Has really, really good contact balance. Like, he's not the biggest in stature, but man, does he run with some low pads? Does he run with some physicality? He stays on his feet, and then we all know what he has when he gets out in space. And I think LSU is going to try to use him in space a little bit more, including kind of throwing him the football out in some screen passes, some swing passes. I think Kanan Durham was a guy that I'm not sure LSU totally wanted to lean on a ton as a true freshman. Going into year two, I think he's comfortably the best running back in this room. I think he's comfortably one of the best playmakers on this offense. They're going to try to get him involved in a lot of different ways, and you can, because Kanan Durham is a multi-skilled running back. Number three, two all SEC selections on the offensive line. This might be a hot take for a lot of people because you're looking at it and saying that you're pretty much replacing the whole offensive line. The only guy that played consistently last year was a guy like DJ Chester. Well, here's my take here. Yes, it's a little bit of an unknown what this offensive line is going to look like for LSU, but there are certain things you kind of just trust about this program. Look, Brian Kelly has not been perfect. This program certainly has not been perfect during his tenure over the last couple of years. One thing that's been really good is they've recruited the position well. They've developed the position really well. So although we don't know a ton about these guys that are going to be thrusted into starting roles, I kind of believe that LSU is going to have a quality offensive line. Now, who are the two all SEC selections? DJ Chester apparently had the best spring out of anybody on the offensive line. Like they kind of tried to replace him with the guy like Braylon Moore, and DJ Chester says, no, I'm one of the guys that's a top 5 guy. Now, I think they eventually move him out to guard because I think you want to get Braylon Moore on the football field, who I think is a very, very good center. Weston Davis, I mean, he was a blue chip. I think On3 had him as a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. He's going to be a redshirt freshman. Really good returns in terms of what he was during spring. I think there's some confidence with Tyree Adams. Josh Thompson can play multiple different positions on the offensive line. Even look at the two deep. I'm a huge fan of Cohen Eccles. I was a huge fan of Carius Kern. He's going to be a true freshman. Like the names in this room, I liked out of high school. They've developed this position really well. And then you look at across the SEC and say, there are not a ton of offensive lines that you have a ton of confidence in, right? And we're normally talking about a team like Georgia or a team like Alabama. I mean, Alabama's got a really good one in Caden Proctor at the left side. You got some question marks there, especially at right tackle. I think there are a lot of question marks on the offensive line for a lot of SEC programs, including LSU. But I just kind of have that blind faith that it's going to work out for LSU because it has over the last couple of years. Going to the defensive side of the football, and to me, this is the story. Like, how good can this LSU defense be? I'm going to start off with a very bold take, and that is 7 NFL draft picks alone on the defensive side of the football. Now, that's a very bold take because you look at the last 2 years combined for LSU, you've had 5. So we're going over that in 1 year. Who are they going to be? Like Patrick Payton, if he just plays 80% of his potential, is going to be going to the NFL. Y'all know how I feel about Bernard Gooden. I think he was one of the best additions LSU made in the portal. Jack Pyburn's probably going to be a day 3 pick. Whit Weeks is probably the best off-ball, if not maybe behind Anthony Hill, best off-ball linebacker in the country. Harold Perkins is going to get picked, and I think we're all really excited to see what Harold Perkins looks like in 2025, excuse me. And then you go to the secondary and say, Mansour Delane, they feel pretty good. I don't know if he's ever going to be a top 100 pick. Like DJ Pickett's not eligible to go to the NFL, but he's going to be a first-round pick, in my opinion, over the next couple of years. AJ Halsey and Tamarcus Cooley very well could be draft picks. I mean, I'm going down the list and saying there's a lot of NFL talent on the defensive side of the football, especially in the secondary. a position that was a complete liability for LSU in the 2024 year. You look at LSU, and people are all over the place on what LSU is going to be in 2025, and I get that. It's a lot of new faces coming into this program. If it all comes together and you get guys playing the way I think they can play in the 2025 year, this defense has a chance to be a top 20 defense in the country. Like, I know that's a crazy take because what we've seen from the LSU defenses over the last couple of years has been nowhere close. Year two defensive coordinator, personnel that I think is legitimately top 20 in the country. That's the story with LSU. Like, how good can this defense be? I think they can be pretty damn good. Last one, 4 players with 5+ sacks. One of the big storylines is, hey, how do we replace the pass rush production? Which, I mean, LSU did not have a lot of things that were elite about their defense. That pass rush was with guys like Braden Swinson and Savion Jones. I don't know if you have a guy that goes for 10+ sacks, although I think Patrick Payton certainly could. But then you start looking at, all right, we can just replace all that production with a committee approach. Patrick Payton probably goes for 5. I think Jack Pyburn certainly has a chance to go for 5. Bernard Gooden, I think, goes for 5. Look, Bernard Gooden only had 1.5 sacks last year, had 27 quarterback hurries. This dude is extremely disruptive when it comes to rushing the passer, just didn't finish on some of those opportunities at UCF. I think he certainly can in 2025. Gabriel Relaford, he's a guy that I think could go for 5+. They love to blitz with Weeks. He probably could go for 5+. And I think Harold Perkins certainly could go 5+ if you give him enough opportunities. There's a lot to like. And I think the pass rush is going to be pretty dang good. And even if you have trouble replacing Savion Jones and Braden Swinson with how good they were last year, you have a bunch of guys that can play a role replacing that production. And it doesn't hurt that you have a better secondary that can hold up a little bit better, be a little bit more sticky in man coverage, which certainly is going to help the pass rush. The reasons to believe in this LSU team, I think, are on the defensive side of the football. I think you got one of the most trustworthy quarterbacks in the country with an offensive coordinator that I believe in, with weapons on the outside. Like, I know you have question marks about the offensive line, but I think this offense should be a top 20, top 25 offense in the country. Can this LSU defense be a top 20 defense in the country? If you get that, this team's competing at the highest level of the sport. Like, they're one of those teams that, from a personnel standpoint, you don't have a ton of question marks about because they've addressed them all in the portal. Going to be a really fun team. Those are some of my bold predictions for LSU going into 2025. An extremely fun episode to do for myself. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed putting it together, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.